Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soul Seekers podcast, where we believe that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure as we share our mission of mentorship is conservation. To learn more about everything we do, check out our show on Carbon TV or go to soulseekersnation.com. Freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you want to take your shooting experience to the next level, then check out Cole-TAC gear for 100% made in America products. Cole-TAC manufactures specialty gear designed for long-range shooting, hunting, and other tactical applications. From their support bags, suppressor covers, shooting mats, and a whole lot more, Cole-TAC is creating tough, durable, and innovative gear for both civilian and professional markets. Go to Cole-TAC.com to see all that they have to offer. That's COLE-TAC.com. If you are looking to get a new rifle or build your own, look no further than Kelbley's. Kelbley's actions and rifles have a higher level of accuracy and hold 92 world records set on either one of their rifles or rifle actions. Whether you're looking for an ultralight mountain rifle or wanting to compete in precision rifle shooting, Kelbley's has you covered. Go to kelbley.com to find out more or give them a call as their customer service is the best. That's KELBLY.com. Kelbley's. If you're looking to take your hunting to another level, there's no better way to do it than by subscribing to onX Hunt. If you want to get better at hunting and go deeper into your scouting, onX is the #1 GPS app for that. Join the millions of hunters who trust onX Hunt to find more game, discover new access, and hunt smarter. If you want to know more about onX, go to onxmaps.com/hunt or download their app today for a free trial. If you are wanting to become more accurate and deadly with your shooting, one of the best things you can do is upgrade your trigger with a Timney. Timney triggers are 100% made in America and have been since their founding, providing a crisp, reliable, and repeatable trigger break every time. I'll be shooting Timney triggers in my guns this year, and I hope you'll join me in shooting the world's finest trigger. Go to timneytriggers.com to get yours today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack, and today we are going to be talking to somebody who has just dove all in. He got an itch for the outdoors, realized how much it transformed his life, and it was time to say goodbye to the 9-to-5 grind of the concrete jungle, and he wanted to pursue the wild. We got Cliff Gray from Pursuit with Cliff, the YouTube channel, but also pursuitwithcliff.com, here to talk all about his journey, his story, and how the wild and the wild things have impacted his lives and his soul. So Cliff, thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show, sharing your story, and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation.
Yeah, of course, dude. Thanks for having me. I gotta ask, dude, you got like a teleprompter or something? You're crushing the intros. I like it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot of times, people podcast, they're like, oh, they record an intro prior or after an episode, and I figure I might as well just hype people up and have them be right there while I do it.
Dude, if you can execute, it's the way to go. Like I'm pumped. I have to laugh though because I'm one of those guys. I tell my guests on my podcast, I'm like, dude, I'm doing the intro afterwards.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're gonna have to hear me say it like 5 times before we even start.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, it's I just released episode 320 this week.
Whoa,
so
way cool, man.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where hopefully people are listening and enjoying the show. I'm pretty sure they are. The numbers are still there, but just one of those things. We are made to create. I'm a believer in a higher power and God, and He's the creator, and we're made in His image. And so, if we're not creating and constantly putting out into this world, then I believe we're doing it wrong. And so, this is just one way that I get to share my love of God and His creation with everyone else.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
I like it.
Dude, I appreciate that. Well, I want to hear about your journey and your story because you have a real fascinating story to me. When I was starting to dive into who you were and what you've been doing, I was like, this is a guy I need to get on my podcast. And so obviously we were able to line it up and get it going. But what's your history with hunting? Was that something that you were raised in, or did you find it on your own, or what's your background?
Yeah, so my connection with hunting, I would say, is like a very traditional one, with the exception of that, like I've been in and out of, I guess, really worlds that were totally far away from the outdoors and hunting during periods of my life. But from the get, I mean, I grew up in a hunting family. My dad was an outfitter part of the year, and then he ran a cattle ranch when I was a kid the rest of the year. So it's just like a seasonal gig for him, was outfitting and guiding, and a big part of that was the livestock deal. We always had mules, we always had horses. My dad always packed, so I was exposed to that as a kid. And then I actually, I think sometimes it gets lost in the story, but for kind of some, I guess now I view him as odd reasons. My dad changed his career like when he had like kids, when he was raising us as kids,
Uh-huh.
and he actually went to vet school. And so what ended up happening is we had like a split kind of childhood, that I spent a bunch of it in Colorado, and then I spent a bunch of it in Northern California, like far Northern California. But the one constant through all of that was hunting and fishing. And really, as a kid, it was primarily hunting. Um, I hunted a ton as a kid. I
Yeah.
waterfowl hunted, big game hunted. I for sure grew up with parents that were great parents, but were also, I would call my parents like living the American dream, right? Like we weren't wealthy at all when I was a kid. Like when I was a little kid, like we were it's somewhat struggling. Like I was, taken care of. I wouldn't call us like dirt poor or anything,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like everything was all good. We for sure, didn't order candy when we went to go watch a movie. Like, like that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
If you can relate to that concept at least, or whatever your viewers can.
Yeah, just be
Um,
grateful you're going to the movies.
yeah, exactly. Like we would go once a month. It was like a big deal. Like, and maybe one other day every couple months we'd go out to eat or whatever, right? So that kind of deal. But it was all good. But my parents progressed as entrepreneurs as a kid,
Mm.
and so I think a symptom of that, or an outcome of that, is that I was alone all the time. And my parents, like, I mean, I have kids the same age as I was when I started spending hours in the outdoors by myself, or with
Mhm.
one best buddy or something like that, 12 years old, 11 years old.
Yeah.
I would go hunting for 5, 6 hours and no cell phones, anything else. And so I guess it was a blessing. It kind of cracks me up now as a parent, but I had that intro as a kid. And it's kind of funny, man, because when I was a teenager, if you would have asked me, I think, like what I wanted to do, I would have probably said, "Oh, I want to be a hunting guide." But I would have said it probably without actual like mental conviction that was even a possibility.
Oh,
You,
yeah.
you know what I,
Like
you know what I
like
mean?
I
Like,
wanna be a professional football player type thing. Like,
yeah,
you just
yeah,
say it because
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Like it's your, like you're into it, but you kind of like probably knew in your mind like it was kind of wasn't like a feasible thing or a rational thing or whatever. Anyway, so and then I went down another path in my early 20s, and then I kind of looped back into outfitting.
Mhm.
That's the short and sweet of the original exposure to hunting.
Okay, so you don't know a whole lot about me, so we'll share back and forth on this
Sure.
episode because I think this is what creates a really fascinating dialogue. So I'm a public school teacher, and
Hmm.
I currently work in a discipline campus where no windows, students wear uniforms. Some of my students have parole officers. We have metal detector.
I gotcha.
They're not allowed to get out of their seats without permission. One of my former students this year just committed a triple murder. Like I'm working with a very interesting
Sure.
clientele, but at the same time, being in public education and then coming from the state of Washington, and I tie a lot of things back into money, religion, and politics. The three things that we're not supposed to talk about, right? Like,
Sure.
ooh, how dare you talk about it? But actually, that's the foundation of what motivates us in this world, right? Is money, religion, politics, and the why. A lot of that stuff goes with attacking the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we getting up every day? And how this ties into public education, and I find it really fascinating about your story is you said you used to be a financial advisor, or you
So I
were.
was a trade in my early 20s. I was a trader,
Wow.
but but yeah, and we can dive into that more. But finish your thought, because this is interesting to me, man.
Well, so I'm not a fan of public education. My father was a teacher, and I got into education because I wanted to be a football coach and continue playing that sport. And in my journey, I found hunting in my 30s. No one taught me how
Oh,
to.
okay.
No one taught me how to hunt. It was one of those call upon my soul. I need to go do it, and it's the first hunting is the first thing I ever chose for myself. Period.
Yeah, I got you.
It was the thing
Sure.
where it's like, I'm doing this for me, not to appease somebody else or anything else. Well, I find it really interesting, the concept of like public education, especially working in what I do. And I'm a big fan of X. I know you have an X account.
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
followed you on it. That's Kanye West, wild dude, real
Yeah, yeah.
fascinating. He tweeted out today, schools are prisons. They lock children up physically and mentally, preparing them for jobs that they are also prisons until they retire and go to a nursing home, the final prison. He
Sure.
tweeted that out today on X, and I'm like, that is 100% true because I'm not living the job or doing the job currently. I'm constantly applying for new jobs, or I want to do things differently than what I'm doing. But we're trained,
Sure.
society just puts us in a box, like sit at a
Right.
desk. You ever read the book Wild at Heart by John
I
Eldridge?
haven't.
Oh,
I haven't.
highly recommend it. It talks about how people are not meant to sit at a desk. And,
Yeah,
boys are
sure.
meant to be wild. And you said you just take off and go hunting for 5 hours and just be,
Yeah.
you were left alone a lot and you never burned the house down or, you didn't,
Right.
you didn't get stolen or, um,
Sure.
and society has just been like, you think like this, you answer this test, you mark this box, you go to the next level, you stay in line, you be a good follower. You fall in
Right.
line. You don't think outside the box. That was one of the things that I loved about hunting because I used to work at REI and it was stay on trails,
Sure.
leave no trace. Great concept. Love it. Hunting is painting, but outside the lines.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
sure.
and that's what really like transformed my life is like, man, I've been such a rule follower to make sure I'm not getting in trouble or, you know, I didn't have vision
Right.
and hunting transformed my life and hearing you went this, you were a feral kid, it seemed like in your youth, and then you went in
Sure.
the world of trading, and then you're like, you know what, screw it, I want to go back to it. And you ended up getting into the guiding and living an outdoor lifestyle. I find that inspiring and fascinating, and I want to know more about that.
Yeah, so I think you hit on some stuff that is interesting to me, and I think I'm, like, finally at a point where I reflect on it more than I used to.
Hmm.
Um, like, that part of my childhood where blessed to have access to be able to do that. I mean, that was unique in itself, right? Like, we live. Didn't matter. I mean, I moved around a lot as a kid, and some people could look at that as a negative or whatever. But one consistent thing I had that was, I think, for sure by design by my parents is they wanted us to be close to the outdoors,
Hmm.
and they gave us free reign. So I had that as a constant. And what's, I guess, kind of interesting now to think about for me and like my trajectory in life is, I mean, I'm talking like, so from being like 8 to 18, I hunted all the time. I had that exposure. But, I'm 18, 19, 20 to, my early 20s working in the financial world. Um, it like even as an adult at that point, what happened is I knew, man, when I was like 23, 24, that there's no way what I was doing was sustainable. And the reason that I knew it wasn't is because I was one of the at least at that time, and it's still kind of the case today, like what I was doing in the financial world, I had to be in an urban area.
Hmm.
Like there was no like, not we don't need to get in, like, the nuances of it, but the type of trading I was doing, like, even to this day, you have to be in an urban center because, like, the time of execution matters, right? Like, how quickly it goes basically,
Yeah.
through the computer system matters, right? So, you had to be in an urban area, and I knew there's no way I could do that. Now, reflecting on it now, I don't the only reason I knew that was because I had that experience as a kid. I think there's a lot of young guys and even middle-aged guys that it took them till they're 30 or 40 years old to realize that, because they weren't blessed as a kid to be exposed to it.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, it became blatantly obvious when I was, in my early 20s, like, well, I gotta scrap this path because it ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? Like, I've
Yeah.
been hunting my whole life. I've been outdoors my whole life. Like, this is not sustainable. And like, dude, financially, I was crushing it. I mean, like, by all different metrics. It wasn't like I had anything to bitch about, but I knew that I was gonna have to shift. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying like, Johnny, it's an interesting subject because when people talk to me about this part of my life, and some people are not interested in it, some people are fascinated by it or whatever, or a lot of people can relate to it, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like, um, I think they want me to say like, oh, the corporate world or the finance world or whatever, it's like a total waste of your time. And there's also like this inclination for people to be like, well, money doesn't matter at all. Well, it does kind of, yeah, from my perspective, and I do think that it drove me that way early on because I'd been kind of poor before. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And I
Yeah.
didn't want to be poor again.
Yeah.
So it became important for me to also, have some get some momentum on that front. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I ended up. And I think all it happened really is the pendulum swung back. It's not like I went into the mountains and pulled like Hymo in Alaska or something, like, if you're familiar with him. Like, it's not like I was going to go do that. I mean, every once in a while, for sure, that idea pops in my mind, but it just swung back to a place that's like more sustainable for me,
Yeah.
and I still consider myself an entrepreneur. And there's things that I do in my life that if it weren't for the fact that I need some money to support my kids and get them uniforms and stuff they want to do, that either I, am a huge fan of or not, whatever their interest to support that. I'm just like everybody else. There's things that I do for money that I wouldn't do if I didn't want to have those things,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
that
really
long-winded
no,
answer
man.
there.
There's no such thing as long-winded. You and I are just having a conversation. That's a beautiful thing. I always talk. I always say this. I was like, money doesn't buy happiness, but I'll tell you, you never see somebody sad on a jet ski, right? You never see.
Yeah.
Oh, this is horrible. No, man. They're riffing. They're like, this is the best. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things is being a school teacher, you teach to a test. That's the way the system is set up. And just like what Kanye West tweeted out is that we're set up to be a system of a prison. You be
Yeah.
here at this time. There is no bending, it is rigid, it is structured. It is yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir, no ma'am. Sit in that seat. Nowhere can go without permission. And it's all about conformity. Conform. And
Sure.
and it's not taught really free thinking, right? Or like a naturecation, right? Like what can nature teach us? Getting one with the wilderness, getting your hands dirty. There's trades, like there's starting to be in public education. Each state's different, right? Like I used to teach in the state of Washington, and teaching in the state of Texas is very different, but it's still
Sure.
public education at the end of the day. And so it's really fascinating. It's like, okay, well, how come these kids don't understand about the power of words? The First Amendment, freedom of speech. If you don't know words and definitions, you're powerless, right?
Yeah, sure.
The power of the tongue has the ability to bring life or death, based off of what we do and how we use it. And so that is one of the things that I've learned through my outdoor experience is to pick my head up and pause. And I think
Right.
that's one of the things that's missing in society these days is this pause moment, right? This there's so much buzz going on. There's so much
Oh,
instant
yeah.
gratification. There's so much now, I want, staying up with the Joneses rather than being like, okay, be still. And what is it that I want? Where's my alignment? What is my
Sure.
goals? What is my dreams? If the American dream is anything is possible, you just have to dream it, envision it, think it, speak it, and go do it, then why aren't we? Right? I look
Yeah,
at
I mean,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, dude, it's an interesting question, and I have a lot of. Yeah, it's funny what you said in the beginning of this podcast, man. You said like hunting was the first thing that you chose for yourself,
Yeah.
and I don't. I'll make it a guy thing because that's just what I'm exposed to, Johnny. Like 99% of my clientele are men.
Mhm.
And so that's what I deal with within my business, always within the hunting world. It's been that way. So maybe this applies to women too, but I can tell you that what I see is like I got done guiding. I've been guiding the last like 18, 19 days. I've been home for a week. But during that period of time, man, there was like at least 3 or 4 guys amongst that group that have the exact same story. Like work their ass off their whole life. Really, I think in an admirable way, man. Like for their family,
Mhm.
for success, make sure their family had everything. And then at whatever their age at now, and I'm talking about guys that were 30. And then one guy in particular, he's 64. He
Mm.
started hunting when he's 64.
Wow.
And that like basically his exact they're I mean, they're not using the same words as you, but it's the same story.
Yeah.
It's like, look, like I've been doing this my whole life. And then like at some point you have to decide like, hey, this is for me. And I don't know like if that's historically different or not from the past. I really don't know. I have a feeling that it is, dude. Like I almost feel like my dad grew up in a generation where, and again, I don't mean it in like a misogynist way or whatever, but you didn't have to beg for your wife for 10 days off during elk season. Like that was a given. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that it was like
Hey, I'll be
that
back.
was it. That was like a thing guys did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't abnormal. There wasn't like debate about it or whatever. I'm sure there was, people had responsibilities and they had to share that or whatever, but it was more normal to do that.
Yeah.
And it was also, I think, more normal for guys to have who maybe weren't into hunting to have like other outlets for that, like social outlets or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
Um,
Like men's
and
clubs
so,
type stuff. Yeah.
yeah, that stuff doesn't exist that much, and it sounds like, you're probably more religious than I am, Johnny. I've I don't have a real depth of experience with any religion throughout my life, but I do know from people around me that is a big part of their life, that's another thing that's changed. Like people aren't as active in their churches or there's not that component of it.
Yeah.
And so I wonder if like what we're seeing with the outdoor space is not a lot of guys doing the exact same thing. Like, hey, like it's okay for me to choose this hobby and go do it, you know?
Mhm. Well, you speak about, how it used to be, hey, wife, I'm going for 10 days. This is what I'm doing. And
Yeah,
I can speak directly to that. Is that was in a time period where the husband worked and the wife stayed home.
sure.
And
Yeah,
and you're a money guy, you know how the Fed works and the, like
sure.
it's set up for us to have two parents working so that the government can raise our children and the other people can raise our kids so that the parents don't have a say in what's being taught, right?
Right.
Our children are spending more time with strangers that we don't know what their browsing history is like on,
Sure.
that they're
Yeah,
even
yeah,
that
yeah.
good at people. Uh, and then we're exhausted when we come home from work and we spend just a couple hours with our kids before we got to put them to bed or want to put them to bed. And then rinse and repeat. We just do the same thing over and over again. And that is one of the fascinating things is like, yes, as a man back in traditional roles, it was I need a break from what I'm doing and
Sure.
I'm going to do this. Now, hunting nowadays is a lot difficult when my wife, she's a full-time nurse, works 5 days a week and on weekends cleans houses. That is
Sure.
on top
Yeah,
of
yeah.
me being a full-time teacher and then also running Soul Seekers. We have our hands in everything just to make a living, just to
Yeah, yeah.
make ends meet nowadays. And that's the hardest part is like, my wife, when am I going to get 5 days off in the woods? Or when am I,
Yeah, it's a different ask. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yep. No,
it's
for sure.
It's just really real fascinating. I'm really intrigued by you saying I don't have much religion background. So when it comes to you and nature, what is it that you believe in? Do you believe in a higher power or God, or is it
Yeah,
just
so what I should say is I've never been, as a kid, I never went to church consistently or anything like that. Now, if you want to know if you want to go to the path down the path of what my feeling is on like a higher power and that sort of thing. And this is something for whatever reason that's been a part of my thought process a lot in the last like 10 years. Maybe it's since having kids or whatever. For me, man, this is going to sound, it's just going to sound like maybe a weird, abstracted, like, okay, whatever, Cliff, like you're going really woo woo here.
dude, I love the
But
woo.
my,
Give it
my
to me, baby.
experience, so my experience, this is what I believe. I'll tell you exactly what I
Yeah.
believe and people can listen to this. I feel, and I'm sure it comes from my time in the outdoors, that there is, and maybe you want to call it God, maybe there's different terms that different people can use for it, but there is an energy
Hmm.
that I think we're all a
We're all
part of.
connected. Yeah.
I think we're all part of, including the animals we hunt and everything else. I think there is an energy that is one continuous thing. And I think that us as humans, that probably at some point will go back to that energy and we'll look back at our time as humans as something that we're really grateful to have that time, but we're like indefinitely part of this bigger form of energy.
Hmm.
Does that make any sense
Oh
to
yeah,
you?
dude, brother. Listen. I am well versed in a lot of different things when it comes to what do I believe, what do I stand for, and what am I experiencing in this human experience of us. So
Yeah.
yeah, you say woo, you're speaking my language. I was raised in the church, but I totally understand the concept of energy, and we're all energy, right? We're all atoms,
Yeah,
protons, neutrons that are just moving quickly and bouncing off of each other. And what's different between us and this table that I'm tapping on right now, or the tree that's out there, or we're all
sure.
made of the exact same thing. So there's got to be that connectivity, and so yeah, that's interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
and so that, I mean, that's my thought on it, and maybe it's pretty baseline, right? Like that's my opinion. I don't think that I think unlike somebody who's within structured religion, and this is going to show you how naive I am probably. It doesn't really affect like the way I choose to live my life. Like I have my own ethics and morals and those sort of things that happen to align with a lot of religion, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of come to those conclusions maybe more just through like societal things. And hey, like, look, if this is a repeat game, right? I'm going to talk to Johnny more than once, and so I better not screw him over.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I
Oh,
mean,
we're in
but
the same
what
industry. I'm probably going to run into this guy
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Yeah.
but what's weird is I like, and I try to teach my kids that too. Like, there's a lot of things that I guess I've come to the same conclusions that religion strictly teaches
Hmm.
on my own, even though like my thought of what this life is as simple as what I just told you,
Yeah.
that we're part of something bigger, and I feel like I see that every time when I'm out hunting in different ways, and probably at some point we'll whatever we are, we'll reflect on it and realize like how absurd it was that we thought we were all so separate individuals.
Yeah. Well, it really ties in. I love human psychology and philosophy and all this. So, like twins, right? Twins have proven a neurological connection where and I think it was one of my brother's friends had this study done on him through Harvard, where his twin was in a separate city, like a different
Oh
location,
yeah,
and they were experiencing the exact same thoughts or like
sure,
thinking about each other at that exact same moment. And
yeah,
there's connection for some reason unexplainable, but it's there.
oh yeah,
And I,
sure.
I believe it. One of the things I find real fascinating, and if you don't mind me sharing a story here from my school that I work at, is when you're talking about moral code. Where do you find your moral compass at? I had this conversation with students 2 weeks ago in my school, And this one kid, he's like, dude, I ain't doing this. I was like, well, what's your goal, right? Like, what is it that you
Yeah.
want? I've been trained through different leadership experiences that you have to identify what you want, because if you never identify what you want, you're like a ship without a rudder.
Sure.
You're just getting blown by the waves and the wind wherever you want it, wherever it takes you, rather than you having direction and knowing.
Right.
Well, and he's like, well, I just, I don't really care about anything. I was like, well, what's your moral compass? Do you know what's right and what's wrong? And he was like, yeah. I was like, well, how do you determine that? What is right and what is wrong? Right? Is stealing right? Is murder right? Is lying right? Is it wrong? Like, where do you draw the line at it versus good or evil, or however you want to define it? And he was like, I don't. And I was like, then what's the point? What's your purpose here? Because I
Yeah.
always go back to, we're made in the image of God, and he's a creator, so we're meant to create. So if you're not living with some sort of purpose to create, whether it's creating a podcast or a YouTube channel or creating this rocking chair or fixing an engine, or whatever
Sure.
you're creating, then what's the purpose of life? To create. And if we're not creating, then why are you here? And it almost led, and I didn't say it to him because I'm not, these kids already have a lot of missing hope
Yeah.
in their lives. It's
Sure.
like, then what's keeping you here? If you
Right.
really think life sucks that bad, then what's the point? Right?
Yeah.
Like you might as well end it and see what's on the other side. I'm not
Right.
telling them that, but that's where I have a hard time um, like grasping, like, is reincarnation real? Right? Is it
Right.
just, are we just going to come back to the system? Are we going to come back as a different animal? Some people believe we come back as trees, or
Sure.
whatever that is. Like, if you're unhappy in the moment, then what are you going to do to change that? Because
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
we always have that control, right? No one ever makes us do anything. We do always what we want to do, right? And
Right.
sometimes we don't want that pain anymore, and so we finally give in to whatever it is, political persecution, and we go against our values or our beliefs, or you know
Right.
our gut instincts. It's really fascinating. This is the human psychology part that I love, and how I actually reflect a lot through hunting, and learning how to talk about defense of hunting is more about a defense of how to live our lives as human beings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's to bring it into hunting. What's and I always wonder, man, on this because I got little kids. So, and I think most fathers think about this. It's like I just explained to you like how how like I guess a story of how I feel like I got a moral compass or ethics, and how I developed that. And to me, it's like, well, was it trial and error? Was it just through life? And you figure out, what makes you a good person, and you have a good support system around you and all those good things, and things seem to be going right if you do this
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah.
But it could also have been like more of a nurture thing, right? Maybe, I mean, because for sure by the time I was 5 or 6, I knew that if I stole a piece of candy I was going to get my ass whipped. You know what I mean? So I don't know, there maybe there's, you can convolute the story. Maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, but as it relates, what is interesting about hunting in particular is, it's like, uh, a lot of people, particularly like in the modern sense with hunting, people want to talk about like, get into the nitty gritty of like, well, should you do grip and get grins, or should you do this, or should you respect the animal this way or that way, whatever. And you can have these like long circular conversations or whatever. But when you're with somebody hunting, if they, it's like you could take somebody hunting their very first time they've gone hunting, and there's things that they know not to do with a dead animal in front of anybody. You know what I mean? Or like something to do, something that would be, considered just like unethical or not respectful or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like something we for sure intrinsically know. I
Mm-hmm.
can take a guy who's 60 years old and he can shoot his first bear, and he's not gonna like, come up to it and, you know, call it ugly or it's a piece of shit and like roll it down the hill or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, not to do that. And it's like a weird kind of like it is kind of just there. And so it does make me think that there is a little bit of just like a nature component of it,
Hmm.
that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, it totally does. I'm going to share something I saw. Uh, I love X, the platform X. If everyone doesn't have any social media or at least wants one, get on X. It is the on X
I
app.
wish I wish I could figure out how to grow on it. Not that I know if it matters or not,
Oh, I
but
agree. It's so hard.
it's such a different interaction, dude.
Yeah. Oh dang!
And
I just
go
disabled.
ahead.
I just disabled my iPhone because I kept typing in the code wrong. I gotta wait
Oh,
1 minute before I can pull this up. Go go ahead. Yeah, talk about growing that account. It is weird interaction, right? Like the
it's hard. Yeah, it's just different. Um, but I actually find it to be I like it better. I hate to say, like, the way I guess I would describe it, Johnny, is like if I scroll and interact with people on X for 30 minutes, I don't feel like it's wasted life. Like
yes,
Instagram, I do, dude. Like it's gotten where, and what happens on Instagram is like, I'm not gonna deny, man, it's a part of everything I do. I have to be on these platforms and keep content coming out.
hmm,
But I'll go on Instagram to post something with the pure goal of posting something, and I'll post it and then I'll get sucked into Instagram for 45 minutes. And then at some point, I'll stop and be like, what am I doing?
yeah,
I just wasted 35, 40 minutes that I could have went out with my kid and thrown the football or whatever.
yes,
And it's gone forever and I didn't gain anything.
yeah.
Something about X, and I'm not saying it's all good, like there's a bunch of crap on there too, but there's something about the interaction that's a little different.
I will say this: it has a lot to do with the fact that you're actually reading, right?
Yeah, that
And,
might be
and
it.
we're
Yeah.
not scrolling. This is a leadership program that I started doing this last year. Seek to do more. One of the components of leadership, the pillars, is read daily. Stop scrolling and start reading.
Yeah.
And so, you don't realize how much time you waste just scrolling,
Yeah.
scrolling, scrolling.
Yeah.
It's real fascinating. Okay, so my phone finally unlocked. So this is something I pulled off of, ironically, X. I'm going to read it to you, Cliff, because
Yeah, go for it,
and I
man.
actually just read this on a podcast I recorded not too long ago. So all you listeners, you're going to hear this again, ironically, but it just comes into it's so pertinent. It's beautiful. Somebody posted on, I don't know what platform this was, like could have been Reddit, could have been some platform. It's not social media, but it says the shopping cart theory, right? So this goes back to the moral compass. How do we determine what's right or wrong? Is a grip or grin an appropriate thing? Is it
Sure.
not? So it says the shopping cart theory. The shopping cart is the ultimate litmus test for whether a person is capable of self-governing. To return the shopping cart is an easy, convenient task and one which we all recognize as correct, appropriate thing to do. To return the shopping cart is objectively right. There are no situations other than dire emergencies in which a person is not able to return the cart. Simultaneously, it's not illegal to abandon your shopping cart. The shopping cart presents itself
Right.
as the apex example of whether a person will do what is right without being forced to do it. No one will punish you for not returning the shopping cart. No one will fine you, kill you, lock you up. You gain nothing by returning the shopping cart. You must return the shopping cart out of the goodness of your own heart. You must return the shopping cart because it is the right thing to do, because it is correct. I found that truly fascinating. I was like, man,
Sure.
the people are humanity's awesome. I just got to say that, like, for people to go through that thought process, kudos to them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's a good analogy though, because everybody has been in a hurry or whatever and been like, I could just leave this cart right here,
uh huh.
and then they don't. You know what I mean? They run real quick and go throw it into the thing and run back to the cart. You know,
I intentionally try to park close to the shopping cart returns now.
because yeah,
I'm like, I'm not gonna just leave it out in the parking lot, but I'm gonna make sure I don't have to go as far to return it.
yeah, yeah. No, I get it. That's a good one, man.
So let's bring it into hunting real quick. Grip and grins, such a fascinating topic. When I got into hunting and I went through one of my leadership courses, I went through it with a lot of anti-hunters
Okay,
and not just non-hunters, but anti-hunters. Like they hated the concept of killing animals.
sure.
And but they all wanted to add me on Facebook because we were all social media, like,
Yeah,
hey,
sure.
get connected. And so I end up, I don't know, maybe it was a bear or deer or I don't know, something. I killed an animal, posted a grip and grin. And the person commented, which he already didn't really like me. I knew that. He knew that. Like, we didn't, as
Sure.
in the teaching world, we call it being allergic to somebody. No matter what you do, you just kind of,
Not gonna work. Yeah,
it just doesn't work. And he goes, "Why are you smiling in that picture?"
yeah,
And I was like, "Wow. If you really want to know the answer, that's a great question. But
sure.
if you're wanting to just judge me and attack me, then what response are you looking for?" And I said, "I'm smiling in this picture because I accomplished an amazing feat and I'm extremely proud of what I did
Sure.
as a person because I went into something into the unknown and accomplished a task that took, you know, maybe blood, sweat and tears in my regard to find what I was looking for, accomplish it and bring it back.
Right.
And I'm proud of that moment and I'm smiling because I'm just jacked to have that
Yeah, yeah,
opportunity. Um,
yeah.
he's also still had a hard. I go, "You ever gone fishing?" He's like, "Yeah." I go, "You ever caught a fish that you've been really happy to catch?" He's like, "Yeah." I go, "Did it make you smile?"
Right.
Well, yeah. I was like, "Okay, this just happened to be a picture that was taken in the moment of me smiling with it."
Sure.
And he's like, interesting." Right? Because
Yeah. Well,
fish have no souls, right? You can't hurt me.
but dude, it's a good. So it's. I think what you're saying makes the most sense, and it's how I feel about it too. Is like, look, the grip and grin, however other people view it, and I understand there's like levels of it, right? That some of it, like grip and grin on the sitting on the back of a zebra, might doesn't really make a lot of sense or whatever. Okay, so there's like levels of this, but from somebody who's observing it from the outside, I can see how they might see something distasteful, but they part of that is because they don't know that the grip and grin is the natural state after harvesting an animal. It is
hmm
100% to the extent that I don't have a problem with like the non grip and grin, like the guy looking at the animal or a pretty picture of an odd angle of the animal or whatever. Like, I'm not saying those are bad, but absolutely there's a part of me that when I see those, I think to myself, are those genuine? Because what they're doing is not the natural state of a hunter after accomplishing the task.
hmm
It's not.
hmm
I've guided hundreds and hundreds of hunts, and it's the natural state is generally to be like relieved, and then excited, and then happy with the goal being accomplished. And then within there, absolutely, there can be embedded sadness a little bit, maybe even a little remorse for some people as they kind of like computing all that's happened. But the natural state after harvesting an animal and after a successful hunt is not to just be stone cold for 2 hours and like have no excitement. It's
Right.
not it's just not normal.
Yeah, there's a lot of people down here in Texas specifically, or people it seems like maybe they've hunted for a long time. I have a buddy, Sam. Him and his dad, they take. This is before I got involved in their lives, right? Like when they're
Yeah.
seeing me, I love to smile. I'm like full of joy and ready to rock. And they send me a picture of a deer they shot, and they're like stone cold face, like
Yeah.
like, I don't get it, man. Are you not happy that that just happened, or do you want to try to
Sure.
return it, or like,
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me. How can you have such a straight face? Because when we talk, you just naturally have a smile on your face, right?
Yeah, you're excited.
Like you're
Yeah,
just enjoying yourself, and you can tell by the way your eyes are and the creases of
yeah,
your
sure.
mouth. Like, yeah, but to have such a stone face, like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and who know I mean, maybe, and for sure there's, like, levels of people that are some of it is just that, like, if people have done a certain type of hunt over and over, like, they're a little they might be a little less excited about it
Hmm.
or this whatever. It could be a bunch of other things, but, in general, it's normal to be excited
Yeah.
and be like, it's not like, I don't wanna just say it's, like, happy and, like, hooping and hollering and excited and, like, totally a positive thing because there's always, like, a mix. There can be and it depends, right, on, like,
Oh
the
yeah.
people and everything. There's, like, it's not just, like, a easy, simple emotion.
Right.
Then I think that's what when people who are upset about it, that's what they feel like. They feel like, oh, they're just, like, excited because they killed something, and that's weird to them. But I think that's just, like, that you can't pick up the nuance in a picture. You're
Hmm.
not there, you
Yeah.
know? But the natural state of being, generally a sense of accomplishment is pretty normal.
Yeah.
I would if we had a time machine, man, and we could go back to when it was only Native Americans or even pre to that hunting, I guarantee you when they killed something, they were smiling.
Oh
I
yeah.
I I, I can guarantee it.
Yeah.
And anybody that tells me they think otherwise, I think they're full of shit. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of my thought on it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Just speaking of which, real quick, it's bear season. This
Yeah.
next Friday, I'm flying up to Idaho and I'm going on a bear hunt. Super excited. I got started into hunting. Black bear was the very first big game animal ever killed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Good
I was a
deal.
high school football coach, and bear season was the only season that opened where I had time to dedicate
Sure.
going hunting. And August 1st opened, and I learned how to bear hunt. What I realized very quickly is, and I think this really sets my story apart from a lot of people's experiences, is that beyond learning how to defend hunting, because as hunters, we are all ambassadors for hunting.
Sure.
Wherever we go, people are always watching how we speak about it, how we carry ourselves, how we operate, what we do, what we share. It all reflects on us as good people and being likable. We have to not appease, but the non-hunting crowd that can vote either way to take away hunting or to make sure
Yeah,
hunting
sure.
stays. We have to be likable and we have to connect with them on an emotional level, right? Like, I don't want Cliff to not be able to continue to his pursuits, so I'm going to vote
Yeah, sure.
for this legislation to support him because he's a good
Right.
person. Well, I killed a bear from my very first hunt, and I did it in front of a female yoga instructor from Seattle and two of her students. And like the story's a podcast all within itself. At that moment, I realized that a lot of people can be hunters, but to hunt bears is the most polarizing
Oh,
animal
yeah.
that we can hunt. At
Yep.
least here in North America, right? Like, tigers or, big cats is
Sure.
another story, but bears, it ties into the emotional connection we have as youth, teddy bears, hugging, holding, comfort, all that. And then as a hunter, it's like, well, yeah, but it's like the apex predator to go into the
Sure.
woods and to, Davy Crockett grin that bear down, and get after
Yeah.
it. It's uh
Sure.
it's a fascinating thing. You're a big bear hunter. You
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. You have a bear rug on the wall behind you.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because like, I've bear hunted. I've spent just as many days guiding bear hunters or bear hunting than I have elk hunting, maybe more. But I'm known for elk hunting, but it has nothing to do with reality. It has everything to do with that for every bear hunter, there's 20 elk hunters.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just like a market thing. But I love bear hunting. I think it, it's for better or worse, it's grown in popularity,
Hmm.
particularly like certain kinds of hunting. But I think it's way underrated hunt for a bunch of reasons you already mentioned.
Yeah, I believe that every hunter needs to go bear hunting so
Sure.
that they can have the experience of how to talk about it. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they got to maneuver that story.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They have to identify, excuse me, they have to identify their words and
Right.
how we speak, how we operate. People are always watching, people are always listening. They want us to slip up and they want to see a chink in the armor or and that's not a pessimistic way of looking at life. It's a realistic way and for us to constantly be growing, right?
Sure.
My father, he always said, he was my football coach in high school. He always said either you are green and growing or you're ripe and rotting, right?
Yeah.
And so, us as hunters, we want to improve season after season. We want to get better and hone our craft and get more deadly and more stealthy and better at woodsmanship and whatever that is.
Sure.
At the same time, we need to be better and get better at articulating why hunting is so life transforming. And
Yeah.
and that's our mission here at Soul Seekers is that mentorship is conservation. If you want hunting to last for generations to come, you got to invest in the hearts and lives of other
Sure.
people, and it starts with that connection. It only takes a spark to start a fire,
Yeah.
plant a seed. You never know where that's going to go with somebody.
Right.
Have you ever had some weird or awkward interactions in regards to bear hunting specifically with people you've
Yeah.
encountered?
Yeah. I mean, so you just like anybody who's got, some following or whatever, you're going to get some
Yeah.
negativity, you know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean, on different things. And so the big ones that you get the general negativity are wolves, bears, lions. Those are big ones. And then I guess to your point, like if social media is different, right? Because like you can choose to engage
Hmm.
to try to make your argue your side of things, right? And I for sure have done that in the past, like maybe like I'd call it selectively. Like, hey, like this guy is asking a genuine question,
Hmm.
which I get those all the time.
Yeah.
Like they'll be tilted negative, but you can also tell like they're genuinely asking, right? So I get those, and nowadays I'm like kind of overwhelmed, so I don't even respond to those, to be honest with you, all the time. So there's that component of you can choose to respond to things, and then the other component is like in person to person. If I'm at my kids' baseball practice or whatever, and somebody's talking to me. I mean, everybody knows that my wife's been taking my kids to baseball practice. I've been gone for a month. They know what I've been doing.
Uh-huh.
So in those conversations, you have to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And an observation I'll say about that is person to person, people who are negative about it are generally a whole lot less negative, and they're much more receptive to the argument in person. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
You don't get a lot of people just telling you straight up that you're a total piece of garbage in person. And I
Right.
don't think nobody's afraid of me, dude. I'm a 160-pound little skinny guy. Like I'm not going to beat somebody up over it or whatever. It's just that people, when they interact, I think are much, there's much more interaction that it's like an easier way to go back and forth with somebody on things. At least from my perspective. So there's those nuances. But to your point, dude, like when you go into a conversation on wolves, bears, lions, it's like, well, if you go into a conversation about killing elk or deer, you're basically going into the conversation with like pocket aces. You're going to win the
Hmm.
argument.
Yeah.
If you want to just get down to like, just arguing with somebody to like prove that you're right, on those species, it's easy to win because all you got to do is point out that they consume any calories, and you're going to win the argument if that's going to do you any good, right? And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily always going to do you good to prove somebody wrong, but nobody can argue against the guy killing an elk and eating it,
Hmm.
right? The thing is like when you talk about these predators, it's kind of like going into the conversation with like a 4 and a 7 or something. Like they got a lot of legitimate concerns.
Hmm.
Like, oh, you're not eating it, which I personally think that that's a big one with bears and lions, is the assumption that you're not going to eat them. And the reality is that there's some cases where those species, and then wolves and coyotes for sure, people aren't eating them, right? So then you got to have a different
Yeah.
more nuanced conversation, which is absolutely harder to have.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's that dynamic, but like you say, you get good at it. I haven't, not to get the answer your question more directly. I don't know that I've ever had like a prolonged attack based on on anything, man. Like a like, I mean, I've had stuff where like my social media accounts got attacked and somebody ripped off bear pictures off of my thing and like posted them on their deal. Like, I mean, well, after I was on Rogan, there was a pretty well, I mean, she must be pretty well known. I don't know who she is, but she has like 200,000 or 300,000 followers. And she like reposted one of my pictures, or a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I had like just endless comments, dude. Like, I'm talking 100 a minute of how big of a piece of crap I was. And it's just like, then you just go into ignore mode because what's the point? I mean,
when I first got into hunting and I started hunting black bears, I talked with another newer hunter, and he was like, "Dude, I could never hunt bears." He goes, I just won't do it." I'm like, "Why? I don't understand." That was an interesting one, especially for somebody who's pro hunting, but they couldn't wrap their heads around pro predator hunting.
Right. Dude, and that it's what's interesting to me, John, and I think it's a positive thing within the hunting community. Like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was pretty normal. And there was even like, I'm not saying that there's no rifts left. Like, there's a lot of internal rifts within hunting. But dude, 15 years ago, there was, well, maybe as time flies by, let's say like 20 years ago in the hunting world, huge rift between houndsmen and normal hunters.
Yep.
It was you'd rarely find a guy who was like a hardcore elk hunter or hardcore deer hunter.
Yeah.
They generally did not like hounds guys.
Yep.
And what happened during that period of time is that's when, these, the hound type of hunting in California and other states, it all got attacked. And a huge portion of the hunting community had no interest in supporting it.
Right.
And those sort of like real deep rifts, in my opinion, have smoothed out a whole lot in the hunting world.
Yes.
Which I think is a positive thing.
Yeah. 100%. I'm pulling up something I created that got reposted. I think Howl for Wildlife might have reposted it at one point. But I took Dr. Niemöller's quote from World War II and the concentration camps and all that. Are you a history buff at all? You like history?
To some extent.
Okay.
But I'm very willing to. I do like history, so go for it.
I love it. Well, his quote is, and I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but at first they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the gypsies, and I wasn't a gypsy, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't say anything. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak. I did it a little different way, and actually, I got some shade for this because they're like, "That's such a horrible. You're taking that quote and whatever."
Yeah, sure.
I was like, "Come on, people." I said, "First they came for the trappers, and I did not speak out because I was not a trapper. Then they came for the houndsmen, and I did not speak out because I was not a houndsman. Then they came for the predator hunters, and I did not speak out because I was not a predator hunter. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." And signed every hunter and outdoorsman. And that's I would, to your point, I totally agree, is that there has been a whole lot more unity as of late when people have been realizing, holy crap, it's a domino effect, and if we got to stop this first domino from falling,
right?
Because if there's no one left, then we lose it all.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure, man. And I think there's been there's been like critical issues that have come up in the last 4 or 5 years where you see a lot of that, guys or hunters in general being willing to, support, or really like even put in an effort to support hunting that they've never done before in states they've never been involved, like just all sorts of things. So I think that's a positive component. And then to your original point, I think it's a bit of an educational thing, man. Like, like guys are more willing to, I mean, the bear thing comes up all the time. And I mean, again, 10 years ago, half of hunters didn't even they didn't even know. It wasn't like a preference thing. Like now there's a preference thing on bear meat. Some guys like it, some people don't, whatever. But 10 years ago it was like, is it edible or not? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
that's the conversation. So there's been much more like, that has changed culturally
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
There's still guys that don't want to go bear hunt. I mean, I get it. There's probably animals that I don't have a real strong interest in. I say that kind of lightly because honestly, man, like I'm kind of game to go hunt anything once.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But still, like, I get where people are coming from who they may have some species they don't want to
Well,
hunt or
that's
whatever.
that's the issue is that you say you're game to go hunt anything once. When you
Yeah.
go through a process of an experience creates a perspective, which
Yeah.
you they then for can speak from. Otherwise, you just have an opinion and you're just repeating something else that someone else told you
Oh
down the
yeah.
line, and it's just an echo chamber. So people need to actually go step in with courage and be like, okay, let's see what this is all about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather
Sure.
than, well,
Oh yeah.
my mom and dad said this, or I heard it on the news, or
Yeah.
and then society just becomes dumber and dumber because they don't know, they don't hold their own knowledge, and that's what really irritates me. Is
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah.
oh well,
Yeah.
I can just Google this, I can just do no. You ever heard of book burning? So like when the power goes off, you need to know. And what is it, Socrates? To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom, right? Like you
Sure.
want to be smart. Like let's go, baby.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bought my kids
Yeah.
a dictionary for Christmas because I'm
You
like,
just
yeah, go look it up. They're like, Dad, what does this mean? Go look it up. Go get your
yeah,
dictionary. Like what?
go figure it out. But it is interesting, dude, because I mean, it's like, I mean, hound hunting has been the biggest one for me over the years. Is like I've been exposed to it most of my hunting career,
Mhm.
so I had a good feel for it. And I love hunting lions. I love hunting bears with dogs. It's kind of interesting because I don't really need to. Like, I mean, if you wanted to go lion hunting, we're going to go to Colorado. I got buddies there that got dogs there. We'd go hunting. Like, I have no interest in killing. I never need to kill another lion in my life, but I got tons of interest in going with other guys that might want to shoot one or might not.
Yeah.
It's just a fun deal. But to this day, when I hear a guy tell me how like it's a super easy hunt or, there's no sport to it or whatever, I'm like, what? Like you're you don't realize how dumb you sound right now
Yeah.
because you've never done it. You never done it, so you've made all these assumptions that are based that you could only make if you had done it and it was like that, and it's not like that.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like and I to this day I still hear it, and I'm like, wow, dude, it's so weird that you have the balls to be that like solid in your opinion
Mhm.
that's completely made up.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
You're convicted upon the wind for some reason.
Yeah.
Like just like
Yeah.
you're not grounded in anything.
Sure.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this episode up here shortly on some tactics because I'm gonna
Yeah.
go on a bear hunt first week of June. Now I've done bear hunting 101. I'm actually giving a bear hunting seminar at Dallas Safari Club's convention
Oh, cool.
in July here, and I was
Sweet.
at Western Hunt Expo where I missed you. I was supposed to give a bear seminar and all that. So I love diving more and honing my craft. Obviously, everyone's like, when it comes to bear hunting in the springtime, follow the snow line, fresh grasses, 2 tracks where the fresh growth happens. Like, got to get out of the
Sure, the
timber
standard
and
stuff.
yeah, standard stuff. Let's talk about when the rut kicks in. We're in
Yep.
first week of June. I'm not baiting. How am I starting to target those animals once the bears are starting to move and they're starting to mix their diet up a little bit? Fawns are starting to hit the ground and different stuff. What do you end up doing?
Yeah, so I don't actually shift my strategy all that much. Like most of the places that I hunt, I mean, most of the places that I hunt, by the time you get into the rut, the hunting from my perspective is pretty hard
Mm-hmm.
just because you have so much distribution of bears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So generally what I'm doing is the same thing, getting where, so there's two ways to find bears basically, right? And it's always going to be based on your logistics. You can cover tons of miles via vehicle, via like fast hiking, via e-bikes or whatever, and trying to find sign. Or you can long range glass. Like those are the two, like particularly once the country's all opened up and there's a million places they could be feeding, that's what you got to do. So I still do one of those. And then the minute I find a sow and cubs, I'll kind of do the same strategy. Like in particular, if I'm hunting an area for a long period of time, if I know where a couple sets of sows and cubs are, and it's weird, man. Like even right now, you can find a sow with cubs, and a lot of times they won't move over
No.
the next 20 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the problem is you got to kind of, it's like, if you compare it to like the mule deer rut, right? Like I can go into the mule deer rut and in Colorado and in the mid to end of November, and I can have 20 pockets of does and I can check them in one day, and bucks are going to show up there every day.
Yeah.
And at any given day, a new giant buck would come out of the high country and show up in the pocket of does, right? So it works. The problem with bears is you're not going to have 20 sows located or whatever. You might have one or two. So to me, it's kind of a question of like, I'm still just glassing, doing hard hunting where I'm just covering as much ground and glassing, and hopefully I find a boar that's just roaming around. And the one thing is, you will find them. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced, like, you tend to find more bears just like coming across this open face in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're just being idiots and just trying to cover ground. But so I'm just basically hoping for that, and trying to find bears that way, and then just periodically checking sows that I know are around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
the thing, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say to your point is I almost guarantee it, set a clock to a 3 p.m. bear. I feel like 3 p.m. I always see a bear. Like just wait till because they're always just kind of out wandering, But keep going. I apologize.
Oh no, you're all good. I was just saying, like when you do go into a little hole or a basin or a slide or wherever a sow and cubs are hanging out, I think sometimes people think that you have to watch them for like 5 hours and hope a boar shows up or something, or it's a boar like you'll know if there's a boar around a sow and cubs by their mannerisms and everything else. In my experience, like you'll know within 30 minutes because they just act different. You know what I mean? And usually they're not. They're even though it's the rut, in general, they're threatened by them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
the bears start acting a little bit more like deer, right? Like the deer eats head up. Eats
sure.
head up. Rather than a bear. I always say a bear just does bear things. They just kind of wander, right? A bear that's not threatened is just kind of, what's over here? Oh, what's over here? I'm just kind of going about their things.
Yeah.
But yeah, when there's a boar around, especially a sow with cubs, that head is up because it's on a swivel. You're not touching these kids of mine, and
Sure.
got to make sure keep aware. I like that. Well, how do you end up identifying your bear spots? Like if you were the e-scout on Onyx, we were about to pull up a map. Do you like to look on drainages where multiple water sources come together, or are you more looking for open meadows?
Yeah, so I my and this goes for all hunting, man. Like if I can have historical spots, or I can have some old guy in a grocery store who told me a spot that he killed 5 bears in, that's better than any e-scouting on planet Earth. You know what I mean? So that's the first thing I'd say.
Yeah.
Because it's like, dude, like the e-scouting thing, and and Onyx is a phenomenal company. I'm endorsed by them. I use their product every single day I'm in the field. But the e-scouting, there are things about why a bear's in a spot, why a deer's in a spot, why an elk is in a spot that is just you can't observe it. But one thing is for sure, if you find a bear in a spot, you kill a bear in a spot, it's always a good bear spot. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, maybe you got lucky and maybe that spot will never produce another one, but there's a lot of spots that will produce them consistently, right?
Yeah.
So just historical knowledge is huge. It's not answering your question, but that I just point that out because I think it's important. And then beyond that, man, like in the springtime, you know, if we're beyond the green, like chasing the green up type of concept, which there's an art to that, right? Like figuring out the exact exposure. And then when you're there, you know, there's, depending on where you're at, like there's certain vegetation. I just had the conversation with, you may know him, Ryan Avery, who
Yeah.
he owns Rock Slide.
Yep.
We were just talking about that. And like, he's telling me how there's a specific flower, you know, in that those couple northern units of Idaho that like when he knows it's there and he knows it pops,
The
he
berries
knows
will
he's
be
going to,
there.
he knows he's going to be there. And what's weird is that there's other, you know, that it's not the same. Like he's talking about of some vegetation that I don't key in on, like in you know, more southern Idaho, but there's other ones I keyed in on. And then when I was spending a lot of time in British Columbia, there's like different types of vegetation the same way.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when it's popping, like you're in the right spot. And it may not even be a plant that they eat. It might be a plant that just indicates, you know what I mean? It's like an indicator spot, like other stuff's growing around that they like or whatever. So you figure out those things. But if you're beyond all of that, what I have found in a lot of areas, if they don't have high water, so like let's take it. I mean, there's parts of Wyoming, there's parts of Idaho, but that have, like, if you go up 1,000 feet, you're gonna find water, right? Like it's a mountain range that there's water around, and so you know, it doesn't really matter where the bears are at, they have access to water. But man, there's a lot of regions where it's not like that. Like if you're in a region where every time you climb up, you're worried about how much water you take, go find, like in that time you're talking about, like in, you know, first week of June, go find somewhere where there's live water higher than the other basins, and you'll find bears because they don't want to go all the way down to the bottom to get water.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Like if you're looking at, you can look at a giant drainage in the Frank Church or something, right? And there can be 9 parallel drainages, all with the same exact elevation grade, everything else, and they can just be lined up there, right? And if there's one that has a creek that's live, you know, 400 feet above the drainage next to it,
They'll be there.
they'll be there. And a matter of fact, a bear who's feeding in the other drainage, instead of going down in the drainage he'll follow the elevation to the other drainage and go over there and then go back and feed in the other one. You know, they don't like to go down. Like, you know, I mean, I don't blame them, but they, you know, they don't have to. They don't want to go down to the very river bottom,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So that's just that's one thing that I will e-scout on is like when I'm looking at a new spot, I'm like, oh, it's like there's high water in here.
Yeah.
And it makes it different. And I think it's a little counterintuitive, Johnny, because I'm not saying that it's the only drainage with water. I'm saying that the water is higher up, you know, if that
Yes.
makes any sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I know exactly what you're talking about. I already have mental images of places I've been or hunts that I've been on where I've experienced that. So yeah, I love that. That's a good piece of advice. My piece of advice to all the listeners, and then also to you, if you've never done this, is
Sure.
trail forums. Like I grew up in the state of Washington, so Washington Trails Association, can't beat it. Hikers give away hunting locations like it's candy on Halloween. I was out for a stroll the other day, and oh my gosh, the berries are in, and I ran into a bear, or I saw deer, or I saw grouse, or, you know, and you can go back date by date by date and, you know, get history report of being like, oh, wow, it seems like there's always this type of water source or food source in this location. And, you know, hey, here's a picture. Yeah. So that or Facebook groups, like go incognito in the Facebook hiking group and you'll get some real good information.
Sense.
Yeah. Let other people work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Dude, it's just a historical knowledge thing, man.
Yeah. It's like meeting the old guy in the grocery store where I killed 5 bears up in that drainage.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. It's always been the same spots, man. Like there's always been like, before you were in some secret spot, there was some native there, that same secret spot he was killing elk in. And then before him, there was a guy, and so they're always in the same spot.
I was talking with Robbie Denning about mule
Yeah.
deer, and I told him, I was like, dude, I glassed up this monster buck, the biggest buck I've ever laid eyes on.
Yeah.
And I go, um, I don't know if he'll be there next year or whatnot. He goes, if he was there one year, and even if he gets killed, there will be a monster buck in that exact same location,
Sure.
because
Oh yeah.
whatever helped make that buck as big as it is going to help make any buck as big as it is being in that exact spot. I was like, dude, I like
Oh
that.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, dude, for sure. I mean, it's always, I could tell you, like, if all the, I'm fairly into like artifacts and arrowheads and stuff.
Hmm.
You find good spots with arrowheads and look around, you're like, yeah, it's a good spot, good
Yeah.
hunting spot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe they were hunting some other species. I don't know, but if it was good, it was good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it
So
was good enough for the natives. I might as well sit on this rock here and take a
yeah.
look around.
Well, dude, we think our time on this planet is like relevant, and
Right.
it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Dude, Cliff, I've really enjoyed this, brother. We got to get together in community, and I want to support you on your endeavors
Sure, man.
and all that. Like, you're a soulful dude. I dig it, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. We
Yeah.
had some good ones.
I appreciate it. So, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, and even if you didn't, go subscribe to Cliff's YouTube channel. Because, hey, you're not going to win them all, I guess, apparently. Go YouTube, Cliff Gray, Pursuit with Cliff. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of cool things on there. Go to his website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go give him a follow. He's always sharing great insight. He's got some online courses that you can sign up for and learn if you want
Yeah.
to dive deeper. You want to share anything about that?
Dude, it's all like pursuitwithcliff.com, my website will drag you in all the different directions. So it's all the info's there, man.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this episode, like, share, subscribe. The best thing that you can do, leave a rating, review, but pass it on. Share what you have, right? Like, you don't go to your favorite restaurant and be like, dude, that was so good. I can't wait to tell nobody about this. Like, ain't telling no one. No, the next thing you do when you show up to work the next day, you're like, I went to this amazing restaurant. You guys got to try it. That is what we got to be like when it comes to hunting. You love hunting, share it, give it away, provide opportunities for others, life transforming opportunities. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Soul Seekers Podcast. Cliff, thank you so much, brother. You are an awesome human being, and I look forward to being in community with you more. Remember that hunting has the power to transform lives through primal adventure, and that you can never outgive good, as mentorship is conservation. Be blessed, freedom on, everybody, and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast and want to support the show, you can always like, share, subscribe, and leave a rating, as it helps us share our mission of mentorship is conservation. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of Soul Seekers Nation as we transform lives through primal adventure.